This is Fred Hadley from the Village Sentry, and we're about to do an exit interview with Senator Joseph Abruzzo on this, his last day in office. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Fred, and it's always great to be with the Village Sentry. Their viewership, Sentry Village, Western Palm Beach County, can't thank you enough for coming in.
You're very welcome. Why don't we start with a brief overview of your legislative career? How many years you served and in what chambers?
Well, after a decade in office, it's hard to do brief, but I will tell you this. I was fortunate enough to serve 4 years in the House, 4 years in the Senate, back 2 years in the House, and put in 10 years of service on the legislative side, worked with tremendous people's colleagues, our staff, and yes, you are seeing me in my last moments in office at midnight tonight. I will turn over the reins to Representative-elect Tina Polsky, and if you see the office, everything's moved out. We're in transition, and exciting time for everybody. The new representative coming in and us starting going on a new path.
Did you tell Tina that you'll be leaving the key under the doormat? Oops, we don't want everybody to know that. What would you say your top 3 achievements were in the Florida legislature? The things you'd like to be remembered by, your proudest moments?
Well, I like overall to be, of course, remembered by our constituents from the service from our office. We've handled countless of constituent cases. And when you can personally touch somebody and help them in their daily life with something that's going on, I think that's one of the most important roles of the job. By duty, it's about passing the bills and bringing back the money, which I'll get into, and I believe we did a great job at that. But at the end of the day, it's the people's lives you touch. So when you say top 3 achievements, if I go back to bills, I really believe it's about bills that save lives. So, we worked on many bills that save lives. One in particular that is important to me is one of the first bills I passed in the Cole Hornstein law. I was representing Wellington at the time, and they did not mandate that children wear helmets for riding horseback. And a young girl in my district fell off, in our district fell off and died because her riding instructor didn't put a helmet on her. We did things, very important bill for injunctions that really, at the end of the day, protected women. People didn't realize this, but when a judge orders an injunction against an individual, and again, 92% are against males because they're harassing females. When that injunction was violated, they got slapped with a misdemeanor. If they violated it a second time, misdemeanor. Third time, misdemeanor. 100 times, misdemeanors. It never rises to become a felony, which means it gets backed up in the court system under misdemeanor. So we passed a law that said after that third offense, felony. And I believe that over the course as those get put in place, will truly, when I say save lives, it will save lives because somebody will have a stronger restraining order. That individual will be put in jail and not being able to harass that person. We also passed the bill for Grandparents' Bill of Rights, which allowed grandparents to petition the court so they could see their grandchildren if the parent, under certain criteria, if they were a felon. Also, the silver alert. I'm really proud about this one. As you know, when you drive, you see silver alerts come out across the highway signs, and that's if a senior goes missing. And I'm proud to say that Palm Beach County and Sheriff Bradshaw has returned more missing seniors than anybody in the state. But we passed that law. We made the silver alert a statewide law and the ability to get that in place. So, I don't know how many lives that says, and I could go on, 50 bills, I would say a good number of them, there was a premise of helping people or saving their lives, and that's what it's all about. And then, I know I went over 3, but we brought back a lot of money to the district. Millions, tens of millions, which added up, yearly, which added up to hundreds of millions of dollars back to Palm Beach County. And we're a donor county. So we send our taxes up to Tallahassee, and then they fund the rest of the state, and we don't get our proportion back. So we are in the minority, a lot of my time in the super minority. So to be able to go up and get that money and say, we're contributing, we have this going on in our district, we have this going on in Palm Beach County, back up our county commission and county administrator, I think that was so important, and we delivered on that promise. So, between the constituent services, passing bills that save lives, and bringing back our funds to run our community. I think obviously those are what we would like to be known for. And it's not just me, it's our staff. You're only as good as your staff, and I've been blessed to have incredible staff, from our chief of staffs to our legislative aides and our district directors. We've been great.
Okay, now, in addition to this being your last day in office, it's also November 6th, which is the general election. And of course, we as Democrats are hopeful that our team, headed by Andrew Gillum and Chris King, prevail. So what I want to point out is that you were one of the top legislators to come out and endorse Andrew Gillum very early on. And I think that shows tremendous leadership and tremendous political courage. Can you tell us about that process? What happened?
Yeah.
And why and how
Sure.
you knew Andrew? And
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew's been a friend for a long time. For this past decade, when I got elected, when we got elected, President Obama honored 200 young elected officials across the country at the White House, and Andrew and myself got chosen amongst a few others. So we bonded on that trip.
when was that? Roughly.
2009, I want to say, but don't quote me. It was in his first term. It could have been 9 or 10, something along that.
Sure.
But we got to know each other, and he's just a tremendous individual. I mean, he has a lightning quick learning curve, and I remember him starting. He was a city council person at that time, and we were just two young guys in our 20s, in our late 20s, and we got to know each other. So when he decided to go in, and a lot of people discouraged it, I said, you know what? Knowing his talent, knowing what a dedicated public servant he is, I felt that the changing political climate, people would take to him. People would see his leadership style. People will look at the things that he has done, and I thought he had a real legitimate shot.
How would you define the changing political climate? Can you put that into words?
Sure. I think that, well, let me take a step back. There used to be a saying in politics, and I say used to be, that nothing ever changes, only the names. Meaning, the names in the sea change. I leave, somebody else comes in, it's business as usual, the same. That is completely gone now. I think between social media, the way campaigns are run, what people are taking to TV really doesn't, in my strong opinion, affect elections as much anymore. People are paying more attention to the nuances, if you will, of a campaign. So I just felt that, these Manchurian candidates that you could just put up on TV and sell them how you want, that's passé, if you will. So Andrew being real, Andrew being somebody that's a true leader, I thought that he could garnish the people's support, not having the money the other candidates did. So he announced in the race. I called him the second day and said, I'm endorsing you, I'm supporting you. We met in Tallahassee. We talked about the dynamics of the race. We talked strategy, if you will, and lo and behold, he's the nominee. It kind of played out the way that myself and a few others, obviously Andrew, Mayor Gillum, with respect to him, soon to be Governor Gillum, thought the race would go. And it was a people campaign. It wasn't some manufactured. It was truly just taking the issues to the voter, which you hear candidates talk about all the time. That's how we always ran our campaign. We had to win some pretty tough districts in my time. But the first House seat I represented and the Senate seat that I represented were targeted races. We had to run, some very, very tough elections with millions of dollars spent, and it was always about taking it to the people. He was in the same mold, and as far as running the election, and I thought this year more than ever it would translate, and it did.
What happened during the primary? We had actually 7 Democratic candidates, but only really 5 that had a shot. And how did the polls get it so wrong? I don't think anybody saw this coming. What happened?
Look, I shoot straight, and I'm going to be very blunt about it. Number one, I think polling, as you've seen from the presidential race, with everybody thinking that Hillary had it, no question about it. 92, I think the New York Times, a week out, put up on their website and Twitter and in the paper, 92% chance Hillary is president next week. You cannot go by polls. And people are not answering poll questions. They don't feel comfortable. They think they're recorded. A lot of homes don't even have landlines anymore. They've been trying to transition to cell phones. It really doesn't work because you're not getting accurate depictions of what's really occurring. So if you're not pulling the right statistics out, how are you going to say this works? So, I knew Andrew had a base that was going to deliver. He's been out there for many, many years. A lot of people don't even know this, but he was actually on the first list of even being looked at for VP as a running mate for Hillary. So he's been active very, very long. Didn't have the money to promote himself. But as you saw that race occur, out of the people that put him the 5 candidates, he spent the least, but he won.
Now, did you watch the debates between?
I did, of course.
He and Ron DeSantis.
Yes.
So tell me how you think that went.
Ron DeSantis, former Congressman DeSantis, truly surprises me in this respect. He's touted as a very smart guy, went to Ivy League schools, all that. I commend him for his military service first and foremost. Let me put that on the table right now. But he doesn't understand state issues, and he didn't have a plan. And obviously, I've been entrenched. I have a 10-year education on our state. I have a fairly good grasp, I like to think, of how our state runs in many respects. But Mr. DeSantis, who has spent all these years in government, to not understand our state government, federal, yes, he talks about federal issues, but he won't talk about our state education issues, our healthcare issues. He doesn't have real concrete plans, and that gave me great concern. And I think it gives Republicans great concerns. I just saw a Florida Insider poll that almost 93% agree, and it was Republicans, that they didn't nominate the best candidate. How do you not have a candidate that does not understand the issues? I think voters really, really understand that. And if a candidate's asked a question and they cannot answer, that's a problem. And Ron DeSantis is the definition of that.
Now, during the second debate, one of the best lines that Mayor Gillum got off was, "I'm not calling Ron DeSantis a racist. It's just that the racists think he's a racist." To what extent do you think racism has been brought in either through subtle dog whistles or out and out? What can you tell us about this? Do you think this was intentional?
This is a sad question that I even have to answer in 2018. I would like to hope and think, especially after President Obama and all the different movements that have occurred, we're still talking about race in 2018. It blows my mind. We should be so far past this. And I believe, by the way, the younger generations are. I truly believe that. People don't look at black or white. It's a melting pot, and it's about our country and our state and our local communities. So it really does. It disgusts me that we even have to talk about it, but obviously things were said right out of the box. His own party, Fox News, many said it was wrong. So it's not me saying it. It's his own GOP and own cable news that are saying that it was wrong. So obviously, right out of the box, race was brought into it, and that I believe is going to significantly hurt him today. We sit here on election day, the enthusiasm, the turnout from Democrats have been off the chart for an off presidential year. So we'll see if that and if Andrew answered it. I think one of the best way anybody's ever posed a debate question. But, when somebody engage. You know, as an elected official, you get asked to speak at a lot of things. I really don't engage in social media much, but I imagine that, you know, you're posting, you're doing things get sent around, things happen. You disavow it, you remove yourself from it, and you apologize for not understanding what occurred, and you move on. He didn't do that. He almost doubled down in a way on the people that he likes to court for votes, and the facts are what they are.
Now, assuming that Mayor Gillum is successful tonight, and given your early support and your obvious enthusiasm
Sure.
and liking for the guy, do you think there might be a place in the Gillum administration for
No.
Joe Abruzzo?
You know, my retirement was completely about my son. I have a 3-year-old son. I'm jointly raising him as a single father, and I do not want to spend a minute away more than I have to. And when you serve, it is, at least for me, there's a weight on your shoulder of enormous responsibility. And I know I'm not a national political figure, if you will, but when you come back to the community, when you have billions of dollars that your vote could sway one way or another, and people you're responsible for, that to me is the importance of what you do. And when you balance that with the son, my son became my top priority right now. So that's why I'm retiring, and to, you know, it would be a tremendous honor to even be considered, but I would have to say right now today, I don't want to be considered in any way, shape, or form. I'm going to be home with my son here in Palm Beach County, and I transition from role of elected leader to an activist like yourself, Fred. So I'm ready for that, and you know, I feel. You know, I did 8 years in the military in the United States Coast Guard, 10 years in the legislature, and you know, gave him the majority of my life right now to public service, and now it's about service to my son and family.
Going back to Mayor Gillum, assuming, well, if he's successful tonight, then we have a new governor. If he's not successful, do you see possibly a role for him in 2020, either at the top of the presidential ticket or in the number 2 spot? Do you think he's got a national presence now?
I absolutely believe that Andrew has the ability to lead in any role he sees fit for himself and his family. That is far too early. He is going to be, in my belief, the governor of the state of Florida. He's not going to have time to worry about another race. He's going to have to worry about. I mean, let me take a step back. We haven't had a Democratic governor here in well over 20 years. So the transition and the amount of work that is about to come on his table, people don't realize how large our government is here in the state, how many people depend on our government, and he's going to have to be focused on getting this ship steered straight. And then dealing with, most likely, you know, there's a chance we're going to do very well in the state Senate, but he's going to have to deal with the Republican legislature as well. So he's got a lot on his plate. I don't believe he's going to have an opportunity to even think about anything but being the governor of the state of Florida.
And what would you say the main issues that he will confront in his first year in office?
Well, I can tell you this. I would guess out of the box. You know, I'm the Democratic whip, so the vote counting, things of that nature. I would say. Medicaid expansion, number one. We have about 1 million. It's one of the biggest. You asked me the 3 things that I did. The number one regret is that we couldn't pass. The majority party wouldn't pass Medicaid expansion. We passed it in the Senate. When I was in the Senate, we got it done. We passed it 39-1, and the House killed it. Senate President Joe Negron did that. We affectionately called it Negron Care. So there's Democrats and Republicans working together. 39 out of 40 of us. Think about that for a minute. So I think right out of the box, you're going to see health care. We have 1 million people that should get health care. And let me just explain briefly, because people don't understand this. We're giving up billions of dollars a year in federal funds to provide health care. When we do not pass or accept that money, that does not go back to the taxpayers. That stays up at the federal government and gets distributed amongst other states. So we're paying taxes, and other people are getting our money just because we the state legislature, is saying we don't want the money. It is the most absurd thing I've ever witnessed in the decade being in Tallahassee, because I talk about people's lives, and I'm not being radical when I say this. There are people, hundreds of thousands of them, that need health care, that don't have it, that can't go in and see a doctor. That, I mean, it's mind blowing when you think about it. That just because we're playing politics, because we don't want to, the majority party doesn't want to look like they voted for Obamacare, they're going to leave 1 million people in jeopardy.
Okay, besides health, what else is he going to face?
I see you're going to, you're definitely going to see, and it's going to be very hard to pass, but obviously you're going to see them try to pass banning assault weapons.
I'm sorry.
Banning assault weapons, AR-15s.
Banning assault weapons.
Banning assault weapons. You're going to see that.
Well, my understanding is that an assault weapon means automatic fire, and I believe that is already illegal. I think you mean assault-style weapons?
Assault-style weapons,
Yeah,
AR-15s.
like the AR-15.
Yeah,
Right,
I think
sure.
I think you're going to see
Actually, did you see 60 Minutes this week? The first segment is about the destructive power of high-velocity bullets, and
Yeah.
those are the ones that the AR-15.
Again, you're going to see numerous forms of gun legislation, anti-gun measures come out. But actually, the very first bill I filed when I was elected to the Senate, and the very first bill I filed when I got elected to the House, and I did this to put in posture for if we got a Democratic governor one day, is to raise teachers' pay to the national average. You heard Mayor Gillum talk about raising teachers' pay. We've started that fight almost a decade ago by filing the bill. So the language is there. I do think you're going to see healthcare and getting our teachers' pay up. And why teachers' pay? We have one of the lowest retention rates in the entire nation. We pay our teachers $10,000 below the national average. You'll never stabilize an education system if you can't keep your extraordinary and great teachers in the classroom.
Okay.
And I think you'll see that. So I think you're going to see, those be the three main issues out of the box.
So wait,
But
health?
healthcare, education, and public safety.
Okay, I don't hear environment. We've
Yeah.
had problems with the red, the blue-green algae, the
Oh,
red,
yeah,
the red
that-
tide, and the controlled burns of sugar. And obviously, in the primary campaign, most of the candidates had plenty to say about that, including even Ron DeSantis, who
Sure.
called his primary opponent, Adam Putnam, an errand boy for Big Sugar.
Right.
What do you think is going to be the future of the environment and at the same time all of these jobs?
Well, one thing I think you'll see, year number one, the voters passed the constitutional amendment to put money into the environment, and we have the majority party in the legislature has not fulfilled that obligation. A lot of moving money around, tricks and pony shows. I think from a budgetary standpoint, that gets taken care of in year one, and I believe you're going to see a lot of the Republicans on board with it. The blue-green algae is obviously one of the biggest threats to our state in an environmental standpoint, but it's getting so bad, it's affecting the tourism industry, which is agriculture and tourism are our two largest industries. So now you're going to have big business teaming up with environmentally conscious legislators saying we have to get this done. So between the business community, of course, Mayor Gillum's leadership, where the Democrats have been in the legislature for years and years and years, I do think you're going to see policy bills, or regulatory bills primarily, and massive amounts of money to go get it taken care of. And I would say this has started in Republican areas, majority Republican registered voters areas where the algae problem started and exists. So I think you're going to see an enormous bipartisan coalition after this administration moves out. The truth of the matter is I don't think Speaker Corcoran had any intentions of diving into it. Now you're going to have, again, leadership on both sides. So I was mainly focusing on the three where I know there's going to be big fights. I'm hoping and praying when it comes to the algae problem that you're going to see this overwhelming coalition that takes care of it.
Okay, hand in hand with the environment
Sure.
is the issue of overdevelopment. In this area alone, in the last year, we've seen ground broken on Glades Road next to Home Depot for what they call Uptown Boca. right almost next to your office here is a municipal golf course that belongs to the city of Boca, even though it's outside the city limit. And it was just announced that 550 GL homes are coming into there. You go up Lyons Road, which is starting
Sure,
to
yeah,
look more
thousands
and
of
more
homes.
like a highway instead of. What can you tell us? Is there a breaking point where, as we pave over all of these green areas, is this going to affect flooding, environment? Where is the break-even point, and where do we start to create a deficit?
I hate to be repetitive, but again, I'm going to shoot straight like I always have, and I try to be a realistic person about it. As you know, all this, where we sit now, everything used to be farmland and not developed. So if I am not local government, I do not control the development patterns. So please keep that in mind and in your line of questioning. But I would say development is going to come. It has always come. So what do? You try to make sure it's responsible growth. It's mapped out in a way where the roads, the city is in the best position for that growth. Because I'm just going based on history. Growth has never been stopped. It hasn't. Show me where, show me how. We can't go into our national parks. You can't, there's certain pristine areas that and preserves we can't touch. But outside of that, I'm a big fan of redevelopment and already development areas. So if you have a downtown area that hasn't been doing well, I like capital going in to promote that. I think downtown Lake Worth is an example of that. When I moved here 20 years ago, Atlantic Avenue was nowhere near what it was today. The capital came in, brought it up. So I like developing in areas that are already developed rather than going out to new green space. But again, it's not my job. It's never been my role. But if you're asking me from my time, what I've seen, I would say be prepared for the development and make sure that we're staying on our electeds to do it in a responsible way. And I mean wide roads, impact fees, things of that nature. You said your line of questioning, this was announced, this was not correct. So we know it's coming. How do we plan for it?
Okay. Now, your successor, let's spend a moment to talk about Representative-elect Tina Polsky,
Sure.
who will be our state rep, as you say, midnight tonight. She kind of came out of nowhere. Give us a little background.
Yeah, I've been so fortunate in two respects. Obviously, I was a senator of the West, and now Senator Rader's there. We have a great working relationship. He's one of my closest friends in the world, and Representative-elect Polsky, I see great things for her. First off, she's going to be headed to Florida House that has more Democrats than ever, which is a feather in her cap, and the leadership team in Tallahassee, the incoming leader that she'll first serve under as a freshman, which is so important because that's when you get your work laid and learn about the process. And is Keone McGee from Miami, and he's fantastic. So she's going to have a lot of good mentors and people to bounce things off of. I'm a phone call away always, but similar to Andrew, Tina, who's an attorney, has just this great understanding of the law and great ability to grasp things right away, even if she hasn't seen them before. So, and that's what I say about Andrew. If he goes to the Department of Education and there's some nuance he hasn't seen, he'll understand it quickly and be able to make great decisions. Tina's like that. She'll say, okay, I haven't, out of the $80 billion budget, I never saw this before, but I get it, and okay. And the way that I look at the people I serve with and people I support and back, my number one criteria is how they break down information, and if they could understand it and make that tough decision, because you have to make so many tough decisions. It's not just about speeches and riling up a crowd, because after that all goes away. After the campaigns are over, you have to govern and you have to work. So Tina's going to be fantastic. I feel really great leaving office with the people that are in this area. Commissioner Berger, Kevin Rader, Representative-elect Polsky. We have a great local government across the board, the whole county for that matter. And I think we're, our delegation is looked at as one of the top go-to delegations in the state, and there's a reason for that. We have great quality candidates that run, and the people choose. There's always tough elections. The people have chosen wisely. I could say that. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about everybody else. Like they've really sent up some fantastic people to work with. We have a great mayor, Mayor McKinley. Dave Ehrenberg, I think, is one of the. I think, and I'm going by statistics. It's factual statistics. He may be the best state attorney / DA in the entire nation. That's why they asked him to come to Congress and speak all the time. Sheriff Bradshaw is the. People don't realize this, but Homeland Security, FBI, they put him in charge of the overall task force to keep our area safe. That's how well he's regarded. So we are blessed to have an incredible government, and it's a tough job. People don't realize what everybody goes through, but the quality of representation coming out of here is fantastic. And by the way, on the congressional front, I think you're going to see Ted Deutsch and Lois Frankel. If there is a Democratic leadership after tonight, I think you're going to see them in big time responsible positions leading our nation. So welcome to Palm Beach County and great elected officials.
Well, that's wonderful. Now, one thing I want to ask you, we just recently went through a time change off of daylight time.
So we're moving to daylight savings.
So
I got you.
Both of the newspapers, the Sun and the Post, said, hey, didn't we vote to eliminate this? If so, why are we still doing this?
Federal Congress.
Right. So tell us.
Yeah, they have to authorize it from our and they're not. So it doesn't look.
Well, what are the arguments?
Well, farmers.
We're a tourism state.
Yeah, farmers. It started because of farmers, and
something about they can't harvest while there's dew on the crops.
Yeah, it goes back to farming.
Right.
And I think it's staying with farming more or less.
Right.
So we got a lot of big issues facing our state and nation. This is one of those that I think if we could get it done, great. If not, we honestly have to focus on some other more important things.
Right, and then of course the other issue is children going to school in pitch darkness. So it's been suggested that why can't the farmers and the schools just start an hour later? This way we can eat our cake and have it too. In other words, we can play to the tourism industry. People would prefer that extra hour.
You're saying have them start at 9:20 instead of 8:20.
Yeah, it's all relative.
Like I said, I just want to shoot. I just want to. Yeah, I don't want to. If I could not send my son to school in darkness,
yeah, sure.
And there's obviously people around the state that there's children are riding their bikes, walking to school, things of that nature. If it's a safety hazard, then it's concerning. But that said, again, we've talked about many issues in this interview. That's the tip of the iceberg. We have stuff that is very, very important. So I don't want to get caught up in the attention. We only have so many hours in the day. As we have a 60-day session. If I have to spend 5 days on that, and then I have to drop 5 days of texting while driving or whatever it may be, you have to pick and choose your battles wisely.
Okay. I want to just talk about one other major issue that the state has to deal with, and that is the issue of marijuana and the eventual trend. We know now that Canada has gone full legal, and that includes so-called recreational. Actually, the preferred term is adult use.
Yeah.
And they've joined with Uruguay to become the second country, and of course they're the largest country to legalize it. And I think North Dakota, which shares a border with Canada, is poised to do it today as well. We now have medical marijuana in the state, but there's been like a slowness in getting these dispensaries going. And I know you've spoken out on the issue. You once did a session with Howard Weiss over at West Boca.
Yeah.
Tell us your feelings, and do you think that we should become a full legalization state and nation?
It is only a matter of time before that happens. That will happen one day. And I say this because, number one, you see an overwhelming enthusiasm in young voters, as you'll see this very day. Their generation those who are in college now and high school, there's no doubt in my mind when they are running the government, if we don't get it done by then, they will take care of that for us. I do believe that I have a strong feeling that John Morgan will lead another referendum for full out legalization on a presidential ballot, and I would suspect that will pass. So I think the states will continue one by one until it's pretty much gobbled up where 35 states have passed marijuana, which is going to force Congress to act. The holdup is Congress, which is a normal saying, right?
Right.
But because it's not a federal law, because it's technically federal legal, President Obama gave a directive to the DOJ to not prosecute. But if you get a president one day,
Still on the book.
still on the books, things can change, and that is stopping people. A lot of people don't understand that the banking industry doesn't want to touch the money.
Right.
So all this money that's on the table that's being made,
Cash.
they don't want to take what's a federal illegal trade into the bank, because then technically they could shut down that bank or give sanctions to the banks, and it's a issue. So it does need to get worked out. But what I think, and I'll clarify more, you're going to see the past states pass them one by referendum, like Florida if needed. I do think a referendum's going on the ballot within 2 years from today, that for full out legalization. I would suspect it does pass. The legislature, Republican led, has tried to put every roadblock in the way, goofy system set up for these dispensaries, the licensing. It was a mess from day one. It was all I truly believe to slow things down or stop it in some respects. It's not going to last forever. That's a fight the anti-marijuana people will absolutely lose one day. It is
What about the revenue enhancement possibilities?
I mean,
Let's talk about
it's
that.
obviously there. It's obviously there. But we're never. Florida has not been good on bringing in the revenue that we should, and I say that with our gaming issues, gambling. We screwed up the gaming deals to a level that is hard to explain. We've left billions upon billions and billions of dollars on the table a year. Andrew put out the plan to bring in more revenue. That plan isn't even needed if we just handle the gaming deals correctly. End of story. We've been flush with cash. Same with marijuana. If you add those two together, we're going to have surpluses beyond what we thought we could spend.
All right. By way of concluding and summarizing, what advice could you give to people watching this video about whether they should get involved with government?
Yeah.
And, what are the rewards emotionally?
So one of my greatest concerns with the way that politics is going and the attacks and the campaigns is that a lot of good people are not going to run. They're not going to want to put themselves and their family through it. So my message is that we obviously have to change the course of the way we conduct ourselves, and I think that's coming very short in 2 years. There's that old Italian saying that when the fish stinks, it's from the head, and I think that our prime elected leader, the President of the United States, has to set example of the way that you have dialogue, even when you disagree. But my message is, if you're thinking about getting involved, even from of course running for office, from the lowest local level to the highest federal level, do it. Take the shot. Get involved. Make sure you represent your community. Just don't give up when things get tough. I mean, it sounds funny from a person retiring, but I'm not retiring because of the pains of the office. It's a personal choice.
I like to think you're temporarily retiring. Is there any chance when your son gets a little older, maybe and starts to go to sleepaway prep school or something, that there might be a future for Joseph Abruzzo?
I was speaking. I got a call from my mother today, who's obviously my first foremost supporter, and she said that. She said, you never know, 10, 20, 30 years from now, and look, public service is in my blood. It's what I've done my whole life. So, will that fire still be in it? Is it going to be awkward when somebody needs help and I personally just can't pick up a phone and do it? But that's why I'm so pleased great people are coming in, because, having those relationships. But to answer your question, yes. Do I think that if the people have me back many years from now, it will not be anytime soon, would I like to serve again? Right now, today, as I sit here, yeah, that fire still burns. I want to say this. Serving your community is one of the most incredible things you can do, and I just really want people to stay engaged. I've seen, times when thousands of people showed up just to a community meeting because of an issue, and times where nobody shows up. But I think the swing of what you're seeing in this election, people coming out, people are getting re-engaged in government and civics, and that's so important. But Fred, I want to leave on this note, because I have a lot of people I have to thank. One of the most incredible things about Palm Beach County is the leadership. And in my floor on the speech, the Prince of Palm Beach County, Andre Fladell, once explained to me that there's 3 levels of government. You have your constituent, the people that really don't get involved, but they're coming out on election day. These are the people, when they have an issue, call your office, and they're the most important. That's one level. Then you have your legislative leadership, your Democratic Club presidents, your spiritual leaders, your political leaders, those who serve on certain boards. They're your leadership of your district. And then you have what he would say up there, Tallahassee. And at the time when I got elected, Marco Rubio was speaker, and he said, I'm not talking about his politics, but if you look at Marco, he's got an A rating with his constituents, an A rating with his leadership in his district, and an A rating of getting things done in Tallahassee. And you want to be like Marco, an A and A and A. Then he pointed out to another legislator, and he said, he's got an A with his constituents, an F with his leadership, and an F up there. And he's like, you don't want to be that way. You're not going to get things done. And I tried to model it after that, getting an A and A and A. And in that respect, I have to thank the number one, the constituents that elected me to all these different positions in the legislature throughout the year. I hope I delivered. I hope they're happy. Overall, we really worked hard. And then I have to thank our leadership. Andre Fladell, Prince Andre, all the Democratic Club leadership, Mike Lemongelli in Sentry Village. I could go on and on and on. There's so many of them throughout the year. Many of them, unfortunately, are not with us anymore. Could not do it without them, and wouldn't have been elected at such a young age in my 20s without the rank and file leadership saying we trust him to fight for us in Tallahassee. I have to thank my colleagues that I've served with at every level. Those, of course, in the legislature, as I stated, I was the whip, which is like the floor general in the Senate and the House. Had to get to know many of the members personally and work with them hand in hand throughout the decade. They were fantastic, and the 50 bills that we passed would not have gotten done. It's not me, it's all of us working together. I was just able to sell it accordingly, and that goes into my staff, as I already said. None of it wouldn't have gotten done without my tremendous staff. The electeds here in Palm Beach County, we have such a great county commission. Wasn't that way when I first started to get involved, and boy, oh boy, has this generation and this level or era of county commissioners turned it around, and the county staff, Virginia Baker, Taban Laren, just top notch. Our municipal electeds are always coming to Tallahassee, always working with us, explaining what they need, just tremendous. And then our federal, as we talked about, Ted and Lois have bright futures ahead of them, and we just really, I could not have gotten the things that I got done without all 3 levels of government, all the different branches of government, the staff and the community leaders, and number one, the constituents. So thank you for all the years. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for everything you allow me to do on your behalf. And now I'm joining you, the constituents, and we'll just be out there advocating our positions together.
Well, that's great. Well, we want to thank you, Senator Joseph Abruzzo, for your decade of public service, and optimistically look forward to your return to public service when the family situation is a little more conducive. So thank you very much, Fred, for this interview. We appreciate your time, sir.
Always.
Thank you.
Thank you.